Our prelude is Peggy Seeger's I'm Gonna Be an Engineer, animation by Ken Wong.
When I was a little girl, I wished I was a boy. I tagged along behind the gang and wore me corduroys. Everybody said I only did it to annoy, but I was gonna be an engineer. Mama told me, can't you be a lady? Your duty is to make me the mother of a pearl. Wait until you're older, dear, and maybe you'll be glad that you're a girl. Dainty as a Dresden statue, gentle as a Jersey cow, smooth as silk, gives creamy milk. Learn to coo, learn to moo, that's what you do to be a lady now. When I went to school, I learned to write and how to read, some history, geography, and home economy. And typing is a skill that every girl should need to while away the extra time until the time to breed. Then they had the nerve to say, what would you like to be? I says, I'm gonna be an engineer. No, you only need to learn to be a lady. The duty isn't yours for to try and run the world. An engineer could never have a baby. Remember, dear, that you're a girl. She's smart for a woman. I wonder how she got that way. You get no choice, you get no voice. Just stay mum, pretend you're dumb, and that's how you come to be a lady today. Then Jimmy come along and we set up a congregation. We were busy every night, love and recreation. I spent the day at work so he could get his education. Well, now he's an engineer. He says, I know you'll always be a lady. It's the duty of my darling to love me all her life. Could an engineer look after or obey me? Remember, dear, that you're my wife. Well, as soon as Jimmy got a job, I began again. Then happy at me till it lay the year or so. And then the morning that the twins were born, Jimmy says to them, kids, your mother was an engineer. You owe it to the kids to be a lady. Dainty as a dish rag, faithful as a child. Stay at home, you got to mind the baby. Remember, you're a mother now. Well, every time I turn around, it's something else to do. It's cook a meal, mend a sock, sweep a floor or two. I listening to Jimmy Young, it makes me want to spew. I was gonna be an engineer. Don't I really wish that I could be a lady? I could do the lovely things that a lady's supposed to do. I wouldn't even mind if only they would pay me. And I could be a person too. What price for a woman? You can buy her for a ring of gold. To love and obey without any pay. You get a cook and a nurse, for better or worse. You don't need a purse when the lady is sold. Ah, but now the times are harder and me Jimmy's got the sack. I went down to Vickers, they were glad to have me back. But I'm a third-class citizen, my wages tell me that. And I'm a first-class engineer. The boss, he says, we pay you as a lady. You only got the job cause I can't afford a man. With you I keep the profits highest maybe. You're just a cheaper pair of hands. You got one fault, you're a woman. You're not worth the equal pay. A bit you're a tart, you're nothing but heart. Shallow and vain, you got no brain. You even go down the drain like a lady today. Well, I listened to my mother and I joined a typing pool. I listened to my lover and I put him through his school. But if I listen to the boss, I'm just a bloody fool and an underpaid engineer. I've been a sucker ever since I was a baby, as a daughter, as a wife, as a mother and a dear. But I'll fight them as a woman, not a lady. Fight them as an engineer.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende and our Sunday morning online worship service. My name is Cathy Cánepa, and I'm a member of the Sunday Service Committee. We're so happy to be joined by those in Mexico and across Canada and the United States and probably elsewhere. But no matter where you are, what your religious background or lack thereof, who you love, we are so happy that you're here making community with us this morning. We invite you to look in today's order of service for announcements about activities and membership. And also you can find a wealth of information about us at our website, uufsma.org. Also, please remember, next Sunday's annual meeting will take place after the service at 12:30 San Miguel time. So we leave it to you to figure out what time that is where you are. Our breakout sessions after the service are great places to reflect on today's message with old and new friends. Just stay connected after the postlude music ends and you'll be randomly assigned to a room. And if only one or two people show up, just wait and we'll switch you to a larger room. And if you're a new visitor, we invite you to delay accepting your breakout room assignment so our membership team can chat with you for a few minutes in our main room. Following International Women's Day this past week and entering Women's History Month, we're very grateful to Trish Snyder for arranging for 2 speakers this month from Ser Mujer. Today, that will be Ana Lucía Márquez. We're also very proud of Trish, who was honored earlier this month at a Rotary Club meeting, recognizing important women who have made a big difference in San Miguel de Allende. And very well deserved, Trish. Congratulations. Now to our Sunday Service Committee Chairperson, Paula Peace.
Good morning. Today, we'd like to take a moment and remember 2 women pioneers in San Miguel, both of whom traded back and forth, serving as president of this fellowship in its earliest days more than 30 years ago. Both these women lived a life of adventure and service that most of us can only dream about. Marge Zapp began her career working with the U.S. Treasury Department, Federal Workers Union, and the newly formed United Nations before establishing the Craft Barn, an international handicraft shop. Her world travels exposed her to the exploitation and suffering of people who lived at marginal levels, which deeply moved her to action. In SMA, Marge Zapp was active with the UU Fellowship, CASA, Mujeres en Cambio, Jóvenes Adelante, and Occupy Wall Street. As I mentioned, in her spare time, she served several times as president of this fellowship. Marge died in August 2013. Peggy Bell was raised in China, the daughter of Christian missionaries, and she maintained service to others as her life mantra. Peggy married her husband George at the Taj Mahal, quite a romantic beginning. She became a leading force in this fellowship, according to our own Betse Davies, and was always on the board and often president. She was also very committed to Mujeres en Cambio and Jóvenes Adelante. Peggy was beloved for her warmth and grace, and her life was truly a life well lived in service to others. Peggy Bell died in January 2016. Peggy Bell and Marge Zapp, according to Betse Davies, were like Siamese twins. They took turns serving as winter and summer presidents. All of us who had the privilege of knowing these 2 women giants will remember their spunk and grace. May all of us carry their spirits with us the rest of the days of this fellowship. And now to Bonnie for an update from our COVID task force.
Good morning. I'm Bonnie Mcdowell, a member of the Fellowship's Board and of our COVID-19 Task Force. I add my welcome to all of you joining us today, wherever you are. The Task Force is a group of medical professionals and care team members with expertise we hope will be helpful for you during this pandemic. We're expecting the vaccination brigades very soon in San Miguel, and you will all receive an email about details as soon as we have them. According to our friends at the COVID-19 SMA group, you will need some paperwork, your registration number, the proof of address, passport and visa, printed copy of your CURP number. And you should probably be prepared to wait in line. So bring your mask and water and snacks and sunscreen or a parasol and maybe even a folding chair. If this is a two-dose vaccine, which is most likely, remember that your protection does not start right away. So you need to continue all the usual precautions. You will have some immunity after about 2 weeks, but you need the second shot and then 2 more weeks before you can be called fully vaccinated. And when we're fully vaccinated, we need to remember that this is not a get out of jail free card. In Mexico and everywhere else, almost all the folks around us who are under the age of 60 will not be vaccinated yet. That's all the working folks everywhere you go, and probably our household help too. So most trips out of the house will still need careful attention to precautions. The risks still go in both directions. We can still catch COVID after we've been vaccinated, although it will likely be mild or even asymptomatic. We might catch a variant for which our vaccine doesn't give such good protection. We might be able to spread it to others in that situation. And there are a lot of unvaccinated people whom we might infect. The CDC now says it's safe for fully vaccinated people to visit together in private homes in small groups. It will be okay to take off our masks and even to hug. It's also okay for fully vaccinated people, like grandparents, to visit with members of one household of unvaccinated people, like their healthy but unvaccinated kids and grandkids, provided no one in that household is at risk for severe COVID. So here's a test question for you. When you're fully vaccinated, does that mean your household helper can come to your house and no one needs to wear masks? Answer, it depends. If someone in her household is at risk for severe COVID, her sister might be pregnant, or her mother might have diabetes, or her grandfather might be 75, then you all should still wear masks and distance to protect those people. And whenever there are more unvaccinated people around in bigger groups, we all need to continue full tilt protection, wearing our masks, distancing, hand washing, and maintaining good ventilation. The CDC still considers restaurants, gyms, and travel to be risky situations needing full protection. Remember, we're all part of the interdependent web. So if we all stay mindful and careful, we will protect ourselves and each other. And now back to Cathy.
Thank you, Bonnie. That's so helpful. Our opening words are by the Reverend Tanya Marquez. She's the assistant minister at the First UU Church of San Diego. And one of her focuses is the bilingual ministry at the South Bay campus in Chula Vista. Come, pilgrim, let your steps find some rest here. Bring your thirst for community, your need for belonging, the sacred questions that move you, and search for beauty that keeps your heart open. And if you are weary, pause here. Let your spirit catch up with you. You are among kindred souls, fellow travelers, seekers, vagabonds. We too are on the search for wholeness. Come, There is a place for you here. Ven, peregrino, deja que tu paso encuentre un descanso aquí. Trae tu sed de comunidad, tu necesidad de pertenencia, las preguntas sagradas que te mueven y la búsqueda de belleza que mantiene tu corazón abierto. Y si estás cansado, detente aquí, deja que tu espíritu te alcance. Estás entre almas afines, compañeros de viaje, buscadores y vagabundos. Nosotros también buscamos la plenitud. Ven, hay un lugar para ti aquí. And now to the chalice, a symbol of Unitarian Universalism, representing the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. We light our chalice now with these words. Every morning, I hold out the chalice of my being to receive, to carry, and to give back. And now to two short videos produced by the United Nations. The first focusing on women's special challenges during the time of COVID. And then one woman celebrating women all around the world. We shall shine.
Du même endroit. I can hear you, Jerry, but I get nothing on the night.
In Kigali, she wakes up. She makes a choice. In Hanoi, Natal, Ramallah. In Tangier, she takes a breath, lifts up her voice. In Lahore, La Paz, Kampala, though she's half a world away, something in me wants to say, we are one woman, you cry and I hear you. We are one woman, you hurt and I hurt too. We are one woman, your hopes are mine, and we
Now it's time for us all to raise our voices in song together, and even in 2 languages. For our first hymn today, we turn to our wonderful UU hymnal, Las Voces del Camino, which features music from many Spanish-speaking cultures, music which affirms and deepens our Unitarian Universalist spirit. Hymn number 30 was written by Spanish composer Juan Antonio Espinosa and arranged in 2019 for the chorus Mujeres Nuevas by Cristobal Fones, who is singing and playing guitar in this video. The title is Danos un Corazón, or Give Us a Strong Heart. Join in singing your choice of English or Spanish.
Danos un corazón grande para amar. Danos un corazón fuerte para luchar. Danos un corazón grande para amar. Danos un corazón fuerte para luchar. Mujeres nuevas, creadoras de la historia, constructoras de nueva humanidad, mujeres nuevas que viven la existencia como riesgo de un largo caminar. Danos un corazón grande para amar. Danos un corazón fuerte para luchar. Mujeres nuevas luchando en esperanza, caminantes sedientas de verdad. Mujeres nuevas sin frenos ni cadenas, mujeres libres que exigen libertad. Danos un corazón, danos un corazón para amar. Danos un corazón fuerte para luchar. Mujeres nuevas amando sin fronteras, por encima de razas y lugar. Mujeres nuevas al lado de los pobres, compartiendo con ellos techo y pan. Danos un corazón, danos un corazón para amar. Danos un corazón, fuerte para luchar. Danos un corazón grande para amar. Danos un corazón fuerte para luchar.
Good morning. Please join us in reciting our spoken covenant, which should appear on your screen. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Good morning. My name is Mark Johanningsmeyer, and I'm delighted to be sharing in this. There's a prayer, or you might call it a call, or a hope, or a wish, or an encouragement to action attributed to the Buddha. May every creature abound in well-being and peace. May every living being, weak or strong, great or small, the short and the mid-sized, may every living being, seen or unseen, those far away or those nearby, may all attain inward peace. And let no one deceive another, let no one despise another, and within yourself foster limitless concern for every living creature, and show boundless love for all the world. And so we extend ourselves in our needs and hopes and our gratitude. Some of you have sent in your joys or concerns by email to Tom Rossiello, our minister. You're welcome to do that any week. You may also share your thoughts right now through the chat box, and you'll see how to log in there at the bottom of your screen. Today, I light this first candle. John Sincerian wrote, Carolyn fell a month ago and broke several bones in her shoulder. She's had to immobilize her arm and shoulder, but she's not needing surgery. They will be returning to San Miguel on March 19, and Carolyn will continue physical therapy. The next candle acknowledges the anniversary of declaring the worldwide pandemic of COVID. We honor those who have died and those who grieve their loss, those who have been working to create vaccines, those who have been caretakers for the ill. Another candle represents gratitude for action in the highest levels of the United States government to provide relief to the many who will benefit. Another candle for those who are traveling to be vaccinated. Safe travels to you and all. And hope for vaccinations to be offered here in San Miguel very, very soon. This candle represents concern for racial justice. The trial of the policeman who killed George Floyd is beginning. The cause of Black Lives Matter is with us more than ever. The criminal justice system has so far to go in addressing these inequalities. And this candle is for all of the joys and concerns that have not been expressed, or it may be that they're not even able to be expressed or given voice. A moment now of silence to honor these joys and concerns. Next, we will experience a version of the 23rd Psalm, performed and arranged by Bobby McFerrin. The performance was recorded in concert in Gdansk, Poland in 2013. And he dedicates this to his mother.
The Lord is my shepherd. I have all I need. She makes me lie down in green meadows, beside the still water she will lead. She restores my soul. She rights my wrongs. She leads me in a path of good things and fills my heart with songs. Even though I walk through a dark and dreary land, there is nothing that can shake me. She has said she won't forsake me. I'm in her hand. She sets a table before me in the presence of my foes. She anoints my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in her house forever, forever and ever. Glory be to our Mother and Daughter and to the Holy of Holies, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end.
Good morning. My name is Betse Davies. One of the worthy NGOs we support is Caminamos Juntos, which supports deported or returned Mexicans and their families by assisting their integration into our community of San Miguel. This fellowship is proud to have helped birth to this organization and proud that it has grown from an expat beginning to have a majority Mexican board and staff. But let's look at the human impact. 18 years ago, the young Mexican Marcos, age 17, went to the United States. There he worked in agriculture in Bakersfield, California for many years, where he made a home and a family. However, during the pandemic, Marcos lost his main source of income and was forced to work in a job 4 hours from home. On Sunday, May 3rd, 2020, while traveling home to his Honduran wife, Karen, and their 1-year-old son, Kareem, he was detained at an immigration checkout and forced to sign voluntary departure papers. Less than 12 hours later, Marcos was in Mexicali, Mexico, alone. Karen and Kareem soon reunited with Marcos in Mexico, but could not find employment due to the health crisis and the lack of needed documentation. Since his deportation, Marcos and Karen have faced unimaginable and complex challenges. However, after connecting with Caminamos Juntos, they have been able to make a life here in San Miguel de Allende. They've obtained all their identity documentation, employment, and soon they will move into a new home. Caminamos Juntos supported Marcos and Karen with housing, legal support, food, and other necessities for 6 months after their arrival. And Marcos was able to finish his high school diploma with a Caminamos Juntos scholarship to the Accelerated High School Diploma Program. The reward has been not only a job with a good wage, but the knowledge that he and his family are financially secure once again. Your donations help to continue work like this. Information on how to donate will appear on your screen shortly. Thank you for your generosity.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, and I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up, high like the waves, I'll rise up, again. For you, for you, for you, for you.
When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains, and I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you.
All we need is hope, and for that we have each other. I said for that we have each other. Oh, we will rise, we will rise, we will rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day, I'll rise up. In spite of the ache, I will rise 1,000 times again and again and again.
And we'll rise up, high like the waves, we'll rise up, in spite of the ache, we'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you.
Good morning, and thank you, Betsy, for that wonderful talk about Caminamos Juntos. I'm Trish Snyder, a volunteer with the group Ser Mujer, which organized 6 years ago to share the successes and the struggles of women around the world. We are a group of 16 women from Mexico, Spain, Chile, and the US. It's a pleasure to introduce today's speaker and my friend, Lucía Márquez. She's a feminist and passionate about gender equality, social justice, and sustainability. She is currently the manager of Coca-Cola Mexico Foundation. Her impressive accomplishments are in the order of service, and I hope you take a minute to see them. Dick and I met Ana 10 years ago as a group of us gathered at the Mirador to march to the Jardín on November 25th, the International Day Against Violence Towards Women. She had just graduated from college and was beginning an internship at CASA. Her English was perfect and so clear that Dick asked her if she was raised in the Midwest. No, said Hannah, but I just graduated from Knox College in Illinois. We did a double take. That's where Dick's mother went to college in 1922. Anna went on to get her master's degree in comparative public policy while working for the Hunger Project and with the Tarahumara Indian women and children in northern Mexico. We are delighted that she has been based in San Miguel and working remotely since the beginning of the pandemic. So let's please welcome our friend, Ana Lucía Márquez.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Trish, for the invitation, and thank you, Ser Mujer. This is my favorite week of the year because it's a whole week dedicating to women's rights and gender equality, and so happy to be here with you for a few minutes. Well, my name is Ana Lucía. I don't really have to introduce myself anymore, but I'll start talking to you a little about our conversation today. Will be focused on women, leadership, and resilience. A lot of it will be focused on what we're dealing with right now with COVID and climate change and the importance of interconnection, leadership, and community during this next couple of minutes. First, I want to share to you a little bit about the journey that I've lived, that I've had in the last 10 years since I met Trish first. I'm very grateful. I've had wonderful opportunities where I've lived before I was in college. I lived for in 6 countries, and then I moved back here to Mexico to start my work a lot with community development, and that took me to gender equality and working with a lot of amazing women around the country. I worked in CASA, which a lot of you have known, which is focused a lot on reproductive health care, midwifery, and I learned a lot about the importance of reproductive health care for women and to advance gender equality. Then I moved to Mexico City and I started working with Fundación Tarahumara, which is focused a lot on the development of indigenous communities around, particularly in the north of the country, in the Sierra Tarahumara, in Chihuahua. And I got to meet a lot of amazing women there and understand their journey and the challenges that they're facing, a lot around the environment, climate change, and deforestation. And then I moved to the Hunger Project, and I worked there for 4 years leading our advocacy area and public policy, which focused a lot on ensuring women's voices and the voices of indigenous and rural women were at the table, a lot with public policy, with the government, and ensuring that the policies focused on their needs and had their voices included in the conversations. And I got to travel around the country from Chiapas to San Luis Potosí to the north, and also was able to work a lot globally, advancing women's agendas around the world. And in the last 3 years, I worked in the Coca-Cola Foundation. I made a shift from civil society to the private sector, trying to find a way, how did we amplify the voices, and we're able to invest even more and have even a bigger voice and ensure that my values were on the table there. So this is my journey, and this is where I'm going to be talking to you from. And so basically, first, I know that a lot of you know a lot about gender equality. We just saw some amazing videos, but I wanted to address some of the key topics. As you know, women face a lot of structural inequalities due to gender-based discrimination in Mexico and around the globe. There's a lot of social challenges and inequalities, economic, that have to do with our pay gap, and political. The political participation of women there's still a huge gap around the world, and particularly in Mexico. And then right now, there's also the issue of violence against women. As we know that more than half of the population, half of the women in the world face gender-based violence throughout their lives, at least. And this has also been a huge topic for the COVID situation, since a lot of women are in their homes, and in Mexico that's increased. So violence is something that we also are facing continuously in our daily lives. And then there's also the intersections of race, class, and the background and where you live, if you live in a rural community or if you live in a city. And for me, that's always been something that we need to bring into the table, because being an indigenous woman in a rural community has extra challenges that women maybe in cities, or even my life and having college education and having opportunities. So those things are always shifting and shaping how each woman lives their lives. And then we have few programs and policies here in Mexico that are focused on gender empowerment, and very few policies that are taking into account the priorities of women. And that's been very present in the last couple of months. And women are rarely in the decision-making table, much less rural and indigenous women. But something that's been really interesting in the last couple of years, I think 2-3 years, is that before a lot of the marches against violence, like the one that Trish said 10 years ago, they used to be only led by feminist organizations and civil society organizations. And I think there's more increase and there's more awareness in our society of what's happening and what women are living. So even the March 8th march that happened last year, which was able to be a physical march in Mexico City, those nationwide marches normally have 20,000 people. And last year there were around 200,000 women and allies talking. So I think there is more and more awareness of what women are living in our society around the globe, but also in Mexico. And that's very inspiring. So this is just the context. But what are we living in COVID? And I think we all have heard about it, and we saw a video about that. But women, most of our frontline workers, especially in Mexico, are women. So they are having to deal a lot with the potential challenges of being infected and affecting their families. Also women, particularly in Mexico, but I think this is also very common in the US and around the world, are the ones majorly, they're represented a lot in the service economy and the informal economy, in hotels and restaurants and supermarkets. And this is the sector that's been the most affected. So women lost their jobs at a much higher rate. And they're also, right now that there's some kind of economic recovery, sometimes their recovery and getting back to their jobs is a lot slower than men. And then there's also the challenge, and we've talked a lot about this, even in my work with the women I work, but also with the NGOs that we support, that care, that burden of care where women have to work and then take care of their families and then take care of their children and then also take care of people who are sick. Now this like triple burden of care that women lived before COVID has been a lot higher. And that's also affecting a lot the women that have to leave their jobs, or is affecting if they are able to come back, because they're also educating their children right now and taking care of that. And then if you live in a context of poverty or where you don't have a lot of support, that becomes even a bigger burden. So this is the context that women are living right now. And in Latin America, there was extreme poverty. I don't use a lot, we could use a lot of figures, but at least 12% of people live in extreme poverty. Extreme poverty means you can't even afford food. And that has kind of risen by 50% in the last year. I know in Mexico it's at least doubled. There's still not exact figures on what people are living in Mexico, but you see that there is an increase of poverty. And the UN says that there's gonna be at least a decade that we've lost in advances in the fight against poverty. And then there's also the structural inequalities that people are living. And I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, I was talking to an NGO, and I was saying, this is a crisis. And the person said to me, Ana, the communities in poverty, we're already living in a crisis. This is kind of an earthquake, no? And I think we need to recognize that there is there's a lot that's happening, and just being empathetic and being very grateful for the ones that still have a home, that have our jobs, that have an adequate life, and trying to understand how can we support communities during this time. And I know a lot of you do that in your everyday life, but I think it's important to recognize that. And then there's also something that happened a lot last year, and I think it was also in the sidelines, it wasn't in the head news, was climate change still continues to be a big factor for women here in Mexico, particularly in rural and indigenous communities. And Central America is one of the most affected regions by climate change. That's one. It's this one. There's a part in Africa, and those are the regions where rural communities are facing it daily. Whether it's the floods that happened at the end of last year in Central America and Guatemala and Tabasco, that affected a lot of the people's lives and livelihoods of cities and communities. But there are also the droughts and the heat that is happening in Mexico. Mexico is one of the hottest, the one that has the highest rates of heating up, and we know that, and that's affecting our water security. Over half of the territory in Mexico is in high water stress. Guanajuato is in high water stress. And then there's also food insecurity, how the climate change is impacting the way that people are feeding themselves. In Mexico, like in most of Latin America, 80% of farmers are family farmers. They live based on what they're growing. And when there's one shift in the way that the climate is affecting their own production, that's affecting their food security as well. So rural and indigenous women are the most affected, yet there are very few policies and programs that are focused for them. And so that's kind of where we're in this context of COVID and climate change. And that's why it's so important to talk about women's leadership. And it's so important to see how can gender equality and the voice of women, how can we advance it at all levels? And a lot of the work that we do in the foundation and then a lot with the NGOs that I've worked with, there's a lot of things that I've learned along the way, but here are some recommendations of what a lot of nonprofits are doing One of them is recognizing the role women have in their communities, recognizing their leadership and their role, and the importance of listening to them, which sounds kind of a basic and a first step, but it's something that we've seen that policies are not targeted to listening to their priorities and needs. Recognizing the structural inequalities that women are facing and the diversity of women that live in Mexico. And investing in programs focused on their needs, focused on gender equality. There's a lot more investment in the last 5 years on gender lens investing in programs for women by women, and investing in leadership and empowerment programs. And here I wanted to take talk to you about a specific case. Now, when I worked in the Hunger Project for a few years, and the Hunger Project is based on ensuring women are talking and are in the decision-making space, and women are the leaders in their communities. The Hunger Project invested a lot in leadership building. And it was something like they invested in one community for 10 years. So for 10 years, they worked on building the leadership of women and listening to them. And that is so important in our community and in Mexico, where a lot of women are not even, I remember in Chiapas specifically, where they're not even able to have, in the beginning, they don't feel like they can even speak up their mind and talk about their own challenges. So spending a lot of time on investing and working with them and just seeing their innate leadership and kind of working and going through them is such an important part, because once one invests in the empowerment of women do amazing things. But sometimes those soft skills, that part of the empowerment, is not something that funders do, let alone the government. So investing in empowerment, political participation, personal development is so important for women around the world, but a lot more for women in rural and indigenous communities. And a lot of it is also that leadership is so important when you build communities and networks, when you bring in women together. We used to bring in women together from all over the country to talk about climate change, or when we brought in women to talk about, we had a lot of right now of conversations about how women are facing COVID. So having these spaces where women are talking and they're connecting is so important for their leadership and for our leadership in general. And then also ensuring women are in the decision-making table, which is something that is quite difficult to do. It's an uphill battle, but it's something that needs to continue to be done. The picture right here in the presentation is a picture of this is the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Mexico City. And we decided to, right now that the UN development goals are so important and so visible, we decided to do a day of community-led development in the ministry. And we brought in speakers, and we brought in the government, and we brought a lot of community leaders to talk to policymakers about what needs to be done to advance the sustainable development goals in our country. And for me, those places are always amazing, because it's not me talking about what rural women need. I can talk for myself and I can talk about my experience, but it's about how do we ensure that women that have to be there. We're going to talk about family farming. A family farmer needs to be in the conversation, no? If we're going to talk about climate change, a woman that's living through climate change impact needs to be on the table. So that's something that it's so important to invest, that women are in the decision-making table and trying to kind of start opening these spaces for policy action. And resilience, I think women, they're important. It's not only, their leadership is not only important to overcome what we're living, but it's also how do we ensure that women are able to build their resilience in this context, not in context of climate change, in context of COVID. And I've talked a lot about resilience with my friends in the last year. No, how do we overcome what we're living? How do we live that? And I think women ensuring that women have the adequate tools to build the resilience is so important. And there's so many amazing solutions that are being promoted by nonprofits, from investing in their mental health programs, in psychological therapy. Like now, there's a couple of hotlines where you can talk to, where you can actually talk to women feminist therapists who are there guiding you. Also, economic aid is so important right now in this context. And to build resilience, you need to at least have an adequate income to continue to live, no? And then also support and connection. And there's so many amazing organizations that are local and national working on just ensuring that women can connect and can overcome this together, you know? And so that's kind of also the importance, like leadership is so combined and cannot go without resilience, and more in these contexts. And interconnection, to build your leadership and to build your resilience as a person and as a woman, interconnection is so important. Connecting with women, connecting with communities, hearing each other, supporting each other. It's a moment where we're so isolated and we're living in Zoom. And I mean, this is where I'm in the, I think every day from Monday to Friday in this desk, but that doesn't have like, so maybe there's not those physical connections, and maybe we can't do the retreats that we used to do with women, but I think we can always spend time investing and ensuring that we connect with the people, we connect with women, we connect with networks. And there's so many amazing opportunities that go from Facebook Lives to WhatsApps to Zoom calls. And then also, how do we ensure that this interconnection in the COVID context is inclusive? Because a lot of women don't have access to internet as well. So how do we ensure that we continue building spaces of connection that are inclusive for women who don't have access to technology? So supporting each other, building communities is so key to building our resilience and our leadership. And in the part of communities, I think it's also, there's so much we can do. There is a part of being able, this is a picture of a community that was funded a lot by the Kellogg Foundation. They built leadership teams around the country where they brought in indigenous youth and non-indigenous youth to meet for a whole year. I'm very grateful. I was able to be a part of that a few years ago. And building communities became so key, because you need to, as any of us can do, is at the community level, we can build communities with women of diverse backgrounds. How do we ensure that there's a diversity of voices and experiences and we can connect? A lot of us can donate a little or a lot. And I think continuing to invest in projects and donating to projects that invest in gender equality and in the leadership of women is so important. Investing currently right now in ensuring that there's so many amazing organizations that are doing work to ensure women are supported during this pandemic, and investing not only in humanitarian aid, which is so important right now, but also investing in long-term community development projects becomes more important than ever. And even more important, that a lot of nonprofits in Mexico, like in the rest of the world, are losing a lot of their income. So we need to continue supporting civil society that at the same time supports women. And then at the individual level, continue supporting women in our daily lives. For me, since the beginning of the pandemic, was how do we continue supporting the women that we connect with, whether it's our friends, whether it's our communities, a lot, whether it's our house helpers. I don't know if that happened to you, but for us in our home, at least in Mexico City, the woman that helped me in my house, she hasn't gone for a year, but that didn't mean that she didn't deserve an income and didn't deserve it. So we continue to support her. So making those conversations about what's your role, how do you support and ensure that in your daily interactions, you're advancing gender equality, you're advancing justice, in a context that's very unequal. So we need to always understand, like, how can we do that to advance at an individual level? And I think the most important thing is, in this context where we're living, and it's complicated, it's the importance of hope, the importance of, I stopped watching the news a few months ago. I just started watching them again, but how do we ensure that we are grounded in the context that we're living, that we're aware of what our communities are living, but at the same time, we don't lose the hope that we're going to overcome this. We're going to overcome COVID, and then we're going to fight climate change or try to reverse it. And then there are going to be multiple other challenges that women and communities face. So not losing hope and ensuring we will overcome this, and we will rebuild a better world is so important in a context that can pull us the other way. And empathy and interconnection is so important. I've learned that in the last few years with a lot of my colleagues and friends, is never forget our connections, never forget an interconnection that we have with the people in our lives, but also the people we don't know. We're all connected and we all need to advance community and development and equality. And a vision of a better world is possible, and that we're doing what we can. Something that I learned a lot in the Hunger Projects was creating a vision of what I wanted the world to be in the next 5 years, and just always remembering that's the vision that we're working with, even when there's setbacks like what we're living right now. It's remembering what is possible and not what we're living. And for me, I think just to end this, a lot of it is, I think for me, spirituality and living a life of service has been really important. I always, whenever I make a decision about changing jobs or just doing projects, is how do I do the highest good for everybody? How do I ensure that I'm advancing, that I can do the best, whether it's a little or whether it's a lot, ensuring that I'm working for the highest good for the world and a lot for women. And I think I can do this, and I've been able to have jobs where I can continue to work because I've had an amazing life that I'm really grateful for, and being grateful for my teachers. I've had teachers around since I started working on these issues when I was 13, and I've had teachers up until now. In the picture is Rosita. Rosita is one of my closest friends, and she lives in Chiapas. And she's someone who I've learned a lot from and who's kept me grounded on what's important. So finding teachers throughout our lives and continuously learning is so important, and connecting with friends who have the same values, who have the same vision of the world, and my family, and being very grateful for my family, because I think some of them even connected. I think my dad is online. You saw it on Facebook, and just being so grateful to have a family that's always supported. And just my role in life for now is to ensure how do I continue working and just lead to promote gender equality, and to recognize the privileges I've had, to ensure that I can use that voice and I can use that space to create more space for everybody around me and continue learning. And so thank you so much for your time here. Thank you, Trish. Thank you, Dick. Thank you, everybody, for your time. And it was wonderful to spend some time with you this Sunday.
Where the oil of gladness is
upcoming postlude was produced by United Nations Women for International Women's Day 2020, called Generation Equality. But first, we extinguish the chalice with closing words from the Reverend Dr. Cynthia Landrum. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. So until together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, and may we give back love.
What defines a generation?
Climate justice! Right now!
Is it just about the year you were born? Or is there something more? We may have lived through different decades, different circumstances, different countries, but we all share in the global, everyday push for our rights, for justice, for a world that is equal. Perhaps what defines our generation isn't our age or our background, but the line in the sand that we have drawn. We take to the streets to speak out against discrimination, and we work tirelessly behind the scenes. We stand up for peace.
We are fed up with the war
and economic justice. We start with a statement and watch it become a movement. We have come a long way, but the fight isn't over, and our rights are still under assault. It is time to take action. Let us be the wake-up call the world needs.
The eyes of all future generations are upon you.
Be the first, the youngest, the best, and then make sure no one is left behind. When someone tries to silence you, raise up your voice.
Let us wage a global struggle.
Change everything, or change just one thing. As long as you do something, whether you're new to changing the world or have been in the fight for a long time.
Each knows exactly why we are here.
We are all together, united for gender equality. And the future we create for women and girls is up to all of us.
When I was a little girl, I wished I was a boy. I tagged along behind the gang and wore me corduroys. Everybody said I only did it to annoy, but I was gonna be